What if you could help others to find the power to heal themselves? Physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
When I started teaching my classes, it was in 2002, and I was just doing the past life regressions and contacting the subconscious part. But then as the time went on and we found how powerful this was and what we could do with it, a lot of the students began saying, you know, advanced past life regression doesn't really tell what it's all about. This is so much more than that. We think you should change the name. So it was a few years ago we decided to change the name to Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. And this is the healing technique that we've now been teaching it, well, since 2002, that's 12 years.
What if you could time travel with them? Visit mythical places or angelic realms, other worlds, other galaxies. Help others to speak to their higher selves. You can. Dolores has taught thousands of people from across the world how to use QHHT, and now you can learn her method by going directly to dolorescannon.com. And don't forget to mention the discount code MORETALKS.
Established over 100 years ago, Watkins Books is one of the world's oldest and leading independent bookshops specializing in esoterica. We have the widest selection of esoteric books in the UK, and our friendly and knowledgeable staff are here to assist you in a unique ambience of our shop. So come and visit us in the heart of London as we're open every day.
The More Show is supported by Mindscape, Paranormal and UFO Matrix magazines, available for download on all major digital platforms. The comments and views expressed on The More Show are those of the people that make them and do not necessarily reflect the view of Kevin Moore, The More Show, or this radio station and its affiliate or sponsors. This show is for entertainment purposes only.
Broadcasting from the UK and across the world online, you're now watching the UK's only alternative late night talk show, and I'm your host, Kevin Moore. For the next hour, I'll be covering subjects that will open up your mind and provide you with information you may have never heard before. On today's show, I'm joined with Walter Pullen, who is the latest incarnation of a soul on a long path of spiritual evolution. He is an experienced astrologer, and in 1991 he authored the freeware astrology software Astrolog. Now Walter combines writing, a degree in computer science, and a love to serve our planet as an increasingly growing group of lightworkers. He and his soulmate Jessica live in Seattle, Washington, and he joins me today to discuss esoteric astrology. Walter D. Pullen, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's an honor to be on the show, and an honor to be on the show again.
Yes. Well, there was there were many subjects that we sort of didn't touch in the first interview, and I really wanted to get you back on. And we'll link the first interview for those who've not seen your first interview just below this video in the description for the videos. There'll be a link there. But just briefly, just sort of tell us how you got into astrology.
Yeah, well, like I say, I'm a light worker like many of us are, and in the rainbow of diversity, like my particular focus in this life has been astrology. I've been drawn to it and I've worked with it for many years, and one of my specific works within astrology is my astrology software program Astrolog, the freeware program that has been available for 25 years now. And so it's been a long part of my path, not the only part of it, but definitely astrology is a significant part of it, especially for people that have used the program.
Okay, and that's available from your website, yeah?
Yes, my website, astrolog.org, it is again a free program that anyone can download and run it for Windows, and the source code is available, so you can run it on Unix systems and other platforms.
Okay. So what can we learn from astrology? What can astrology teach us in its basic sense?
Well, astrology is really about knowing yourself, and astrology is like the knowledge of the stars. So astrology is about understanding the energies in play in our lives and around us, because as we know, we are part of the universe, and so we are intimately related with it. So understanding the energies in play can allow us to align ourselves with the world around us and have more effective physical and spiritual lives.
Right. Okay. And but you've sort of gone into maybe a different area in the sense you've gone to esoteric astrology. Just tell us about that.
Yeah. So esoteric astrology is, in a word, spiritual astrology. And that means it focuses on the soul and spirit levels of being and not just the material personality levels. So, I mean, ordinary astrology, as it might be called, isn't bad or wrong in any way. However, it is basically one-dimensional, or in other words, it only focuses on the material or appearance aspect of things. And that's good if it's just interested in knowing, like, when will I get a new job, or when will I find love in my life, or things like that are sort of based on the self and the self's individual life. However, there is other worlds or much more expanded ways of looking at it that can be seen on a spiritual level and understand, like, how is my soul growing, or what is like the purpose of an incarnation, and how can I work with that to grow and serve the planet around me.
Right. So that will be is that some of the differences between the esoteric astrology, as you term it, and the sort of mundane astrology?
Yeah. So definitely the main difference between esoteric astrology and mundane astrology is that esoteric astrology has those extra dimensions and includes the soul-based and spiritual aspects. However, definitely an important point is that it's the approach that matters more than the details. Like, there's lots of things that we can talk about, like how to specifically do esoteric astrology. But the most important thing to remember is that esoteric astrology is more of an attitude that astrology is approached with. In other words, it's having that spiritual approach and that spiritual interpretation of an astrology chart with the motivations of not just myself and not just the outer, but developing qualities and aligning and serving the planet and so on.
So if there was a core theme then in esoteric astrology, what would that be? What would the main parts be?
Well, it's definitely esoteric astrology is like about not just the static explanations of appearances, but it's more about the dynamic path. It's like esoteric astrology is very associated with a spiritual path and progression for not just our own individual selves, but like for our group and humanity around us. And so that means there is another important point, is that I would say that esoteric astrology is not for everybody. In other words, it is expanded and has more dimensions, but I'm not going to say esoteric astrology is better than so-called mundane astrology. In other words, if someone is, for example, not on a spiritual path and they're not really interested in growing, and they don't really work with those inner qualities of like intuition and expansion, then esoteric astrology really isn't for them. And so it's important for a quality astrologer to consider, for example, the person they're working with, and to decide whether they actually should bring in the esoteric dimensions or not, or whether that would just be confusing to them.
How would you define a spiritual path?
Well, a spiritual path, you can say, is like a understanding where you are and understanding like where you're going. So, a path like connects 2 points. And so a spiritual path is understanding like where we are now as like incarnated human beings, and understanding what we exist with in our personalities and our bodies and emotions and thoughts, and then understanding like how are we evolving? In other words, how are we changing over time? And so a path has, as we walk down a physical path, you are changing location over time. And so a spiritual path is basically exactly the same thing, but just in a more non-physical area. There's like, what qualities am I developing in myself over time, or what qualities am I sharing with the world? And how do I see myself changing or growing from either within a lifetime or from one incarnation to the next?
Right. Okay. So, within this reading, you're going to go to quite a deep level of maybe your purpose as well.
Yes. I mean, you can sort of think of esoteric astrology as a lot dealing with purpose. In other words, on the outer level, you've got like appearance or effects in life. Like, where am I? Am I rich? Am I poor? Am I married? Am I not? Things like that. And then behind that, you have like the causes, or the qualities, or the energies in play. And those are things like, just what is going on? What am I learning in this life? How am I growing? And that's very important and significant. But you can't even go even a level even behind that and think like, what is the purpose of this? I mean, not just the purpose of things happening in my life, but what is the purpose of our journey altogether? And how are we growing? And what larger role do we, or does the human family play in the planet as a whole?
Right. Okay. And when you're giving these readings, I mean, what sort of tools are you using to bring this information forward?
Well, in an esoteric astrology reading, you do deal with some of the main things that you have in any other astrology reading. Like, you have the signs of the zodiac, and you've got the planets, and their interactions are interpreted, but certainly they are looked at. Both signs and planets and ourselves are looked at in an alternate manner, or at least a more extended interconnected manner. Like, you can say that each of us is a miniature solar system. In other words, if you look at myself, you can say there's a body here, and in the body there are various glands and organs. Like, there's a brain and a heart and a solar plexus and so on. And we know that behind those organs are centers, or like chakras. But in a sense, you can say that if I am a solar system, and like my brain is the sun, then each of my glands or chakras are planets. And that, as above, so below. And so if you look at the solar system, you can think of that is exactly the same, but just on a much as above, so below. In other words, the solar system is a living being, and each planet is a living being. But on a solar system level, the solar system is a being, and each planet is like a center or chakra in the solar system's body. And so if you want to know, like, how does astrology work? I mean, that's, I think, is an important question that many people may have. Like, why astrology? Why does astrology work? And again, looking at the as above, so below, you can say, like, in my own life, if I have like a conflict between my head and my heart, for example, or if it's like, I really want this piece of cake, but my mind knows it's not good for me, then there's like conflict between like what my spleen chakra wants and what my brain knows is good for me. And so that's an energetic interaction going on that can create harmony or conflict or any other things. And the same thing happens in the solar system around us. So when you have like Jupiter square Mars or any interaction, those are energies interacting with each other on a solar system level. And so I guess it's important to think from a spiritual level is that, the planets are not hunks of rock in the sky. They are energies who have physical manifestations that we can see. And so as the planets move around, or as the energies move around, we can see from the reflections, the physical reflections, you can see how those planets are interacting with each other. And those create essences or interactions within the body of the solar system, which inevitably affect us.
And just for me as well, the sign of the zodiac, because obviously that those signs are a consideration in esoteric astrology. What is the zodiac?
Yeah, so the zodiac is you can really consider energetically, the zodiac is the celestial sphere divided into 12 characteristics, the 12 signs of the zodiac. And so really you can think that there's the universe around us, and that universe is unfathomable because it's like the divine. And so we to better grasp it, we divide it into the 12 signs of the zodiac, and that can be divided into 4 elements and 3 modes, like the 4 fire, earth, air, water signs, and the 3 modes of cardinal, fixed, and mutable signs, which gives 12 combinations total. But signs of the zodiac are themselves alive on a vast, huge macrocosmic level. And we can almost consider signs of the zodiac as chakric centers in the body of the galaxy. And so you can realize that energies kind of beam around the galaxy and get transmitted and step down from the galaxy, its universal essence, to signs of the zodiac, and then that goes to our solar system, and then it goes to different planets, and then to our specific planet Earth, and then it bounces through centers in the body of the Earth, and then eventually hits each of us. So it's like rivers flowing from a massive original source as it spreads and gets distributed to ultimately every single microscopic atom in the universe.
But esoteric astrology does consider the sign of the zodiac, though, doesn't it? It does
Yes, it does. And so it does definitely work with the signs of the zodiac, but an important aspect is that it realizes the how those signs work, and how they are energy transmitters, and how those characteristics work. But certainly a significant point is that signs of the zodiac, when considered spiritually, sometimes have slightly different meanings, or at least the energies are a little bit different when comparing the effects versus the causes versus the purpose behind them.
So are there additional planets then in esoteric astrology compared to normal astrology?
Well, yes, and that is an important point, is that like when each of us die physically, we don't just disappear, but whether we exist on spiritual planes, we still exist as strongly as we do. It's just there's no physical representation of us anymore. And the same is true on a macrocosmic level. And so there is the concept of etheric planets, or planets that don't have any physical manifestation. And that is an important realization in esoteric astrology, is that it's not just the 9 planets or 8 planets, depending on how you choose to define it, but there's those 9 important energies that have physical reflections, but that there are other energies. And so one important part in esoteric astrology is the planet Vulcan, which exists inside Mercury's orbit. Now, Vulcan does not have a physical manifestation, but it is an important consideration in esoteric astrology because, for example, it has some rulerships of planets when considered esoterically. And although we can't really prove its existence, there are some proposed ephemerises for Vulcan, and they can be included in astrology charts and software that supports it.
Right. Okay. Now, and you mentioned there chakras as well. Now, how does esoteric astrology relate to the chakras in a sense?
Yeah, and so basically, it understands or works with the chakras almost as much as it does the planets. In other words, like different chakras have associations with planets, and of course there's the larger realization that the planets in the solar system are basically chakras in the body of the solar system. So, for example, the planet Venus is like the heart chakra of the solar system, and similarly, our planet Earth is the base or root center. And so, understanding that, we can see how understand a little bit of the roles that that planets play in solar systems, not to try to put things in boxes or to try to limit sort of the diversity of Earth, but just realizing that in a larger sense of what planets do and how they interact and how they just distribute and exchange energy among each other.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it? It's incredible. And we talk about the 7 rays as well. And now, what are the 7 rays, and how do they relate to esoteric astrology?
Yeah, so the rays are another significant esoteric concept, and they are basically emanations of divinity. And so there are 7 rays, and if you think of the universe as like pure white light, like the whole pre-Big Bang, or just the whole massive unity of everything together, that's white light, but the rays are that white light refracted into a rainbow of colors. And so there's different rays. Like, for example, the first ray represents will, and is that will to initiate or begin things, kind of like the Big Bang. And then there's, for example, the second ray going along is the ray of love and wisdom, which is like a counterpoint, and that deals with the unification aspect. And then the rays, there's the core 7 rays, and together they're basically like what I would call motivations. Like each ray is like because it's a ray. It's not just a thing that you're holding in your hand. It's moving. It's motion. And so that way, for that reason, I would call, in relating it to the signs of the zodiac, which generally people are much more aware of or more familiar with, the signs of the zodiac are like fixed characteristics, and I would call them like nouns, so to speak. Like a sign of the zodiac is somewhat like a noun, to use a simple analogy, but a ray is like a motivation or a verb. And of course, to have really complete sentences, you want both nouns and verbs.
Where have you got a lot of this information from then? I mean, is this learned over many years, or is this from a higher calling? Or
well, yeah, I mean, definitely I would say I have a calling to work with these things and learn about them, but certainly I'm a student like all of us ultimately are. And so, I've have been learning about astrology for a number of years, but I mean, esoteric astrology is a more recent development. Like my astrology program, Astrolog, did just mundane astrology for many years, but it was only that I was really, I guess, as I was learning and growing myself, that I became aware of really about esoteric astrology and started studying it and learning it, and then was inspired to add it to the most recent version of the Astrolog program.
Okay. Now, my next question kind of relates to the soul and the spiritual hierarchy, and sort of relationship to esoteric astrology. But before I sort of asked that as well, what is a spiritual hierarchy to you, in a sense?
Yeah, so I mean, the spiritual hierarchy is the interaction ultimately between true spirit and matter. In other words, it's the world of souls, or the world of causes, or the world, or the essence of consciousness on our planet. And so we have our physical world around us, and we have the human personalities that inhabit it. But behind that, if you look at the soul, and the world of souls altogether, and like the non-physical realms where like what we would call masters and that say either start religions or work more behind the scenes where they work. And so, I mean, it's called the spiritual hierarchy, but that's a potentially easily misunderstood term, because it's not really about any personalities giving orders or anything. The hierarchy refers to the wheels within wheels, or the nested fractal nature of the universe. It's like that, I have cells in my body, and then the cells together form glands or centers, and the centers, the seven main chakras, form my physical body. And then I work with those closest to me, forming a soul group, and then soul groups together form ultimately the human race. And then the human race with other kingdoms, the other kingdoms of nature, the animal, vegetable, mineral kingdom, and even the quote unquote superhuman kingdoms of angels and so on, together form centers in the body of the planet. And so you can have that as above, so below hierarchy, so to speak, up through the planet. And so esoteric astrology definitely considers the awareness of the outer physical level and the soul level, as well as ultimately the planetary hierarchical level. So there's like a trinity of dimensions, of both appearance or quality, and ultimately purpose and being.
Okay, well that pretty much answers that question then, in the sense that I was going to ask you about how does the soul and the spiritual hierarchy relate to esoteric astrology then?
Yes, yes indeed. Indeed. And so that it all works together, and we can actually ultimately realize that even though that we have physical bodies, we do ultimately exist on all levels. In other words, I have my physical personality that I'm working with now, and that can be defined by certain things in astrology. But behind that, there's the soul, which ultimately exists on hierarchical levels, and each personality is a projection from the soul, and learns certain things to develop the quality on the soul level. And then even behind that, there's like the whole purpose of the journey, or behind the soul, ultimately the soul itself is a projection of the monad or spirit, which is like a divine spark. And so from the divine spark, which ultimately each of us are on a planetary level, the soul begins its journey, and then the soul over many lifetimes develops qualities, or develops the house not made with hands in the spiritual body, so to speak, as virtue is learned and lessons are learned. And then, of course, during that journey, the soul in turn spits out the third level, and each incarnation allows us to either learn things or evolve things, or as a tool of service once a certain amount of a level of evolution is reached, and that service. Once a certain amount of growth has been reached, then it can be service in alignment with the planet and purpose.
Yeah, I think that's quite important actually, the alignment of service back to others, in the sense that, what you're doing it is of service to others.
Yeah, and I think that recognizing service is more of that soul level. In other words, service really is I would say, a natural radiation of who we really are. Like once we find out who we really are, that thing that makes our heart sing really comes out as a natural benefit to the world. And so we can really think of sometimes we have what we think of as our separate selves. It's like these parts sometimes that's disconnected from our soul. Sometimes our personality, due to wild emotions or illusory thoughts or physical passions, we do something that we regret, or we do something that's selfish, and that's kind of like a disconnect from the soul. And a lot of our journey, of our spiritual path and our journey, is to create that connection such that the body and the personality is a tool or a subray of the soul.
Yeah. Not always easy for us to get our head around on some of these subjects, but you know, you've been doing this for a long time, and you know, if anyone new's coming across this video, all answers lie within as well, but all answers do lie within astrology as well. It seems to be the case, which is incredible. It really is. You know, for those who, you know, obviously we're talking about astrology right now, esoteric astrology. When we come across the word Age of Aquarius, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, well, the Age of Aquarius, it really brings to mind the planetary level changes. In other words, our world is not static, but is changing over time, and so there's, you know, the sun moves through the signs of the zodiac and spends 1 month in each, but there are also in the as above so below, there are much greater cycles. And so there is the Age of Aquarius, which indicates the like, where does the spring equinox begin? So it's a 2,147 year cycle. And so we are in the transition period between the Age of Pisces, which you can really see has influenced humanity for the past 2,000 years. I mean, Pisces is a faith-based water sign, and looking at our planet for 2,000 years, like say military might was expressed in the seas, and people worked with faith, so it dealt with a lot of faith-based religions and accepting things on faith. And there's a lot of, humanity did a lot of growth through the incarnations that people took during that period. But now there's a transition to the Age of Aquarius, and Aquarius is an air sign, and it's a humanitarian sign. And so we're having again, with the technology focus of Aquarius, now we have the airplanes and space travel and the internet. That's all extremely Aquarius oriented. And there's the humanitarian nature of Aquarius, which is where the concepts of, like, even concepts of serving the planet come from. I mean, those things didn't really exist as much thousands of years ago. And so we should realize that, you know, as we are cells in the body of the planet, as the planet goes through these phases, there are strong energies being beamed upon us that creates an environment in which we evolve and interact.
Okay, absolutely. So how would you say then the Age of Aquarius is considered in esoteric astrology?
Yeah, so it's somewhat the same way, but it just recognizes the changes taking place and how we can align with them and serve them. In other words, you can say that many people are still have a Piscean mentality. In other words, they have blind faith in many things, and they have that watery emotional passion as they defend, fanatical viewpoints. And so, you know, we can work in the latter parts of the Age of Pisces to help raise humanity. And we can help be water bearers in Aquarius, so to speak, and distribute the waters of life and insight to people to help them grow, and as we grow ourselves. And so it's part of just understanding some of the changes going on in general. In other words, it's like in previous ages, we go back to the civilization of Atlantis, which was a human era in previous ages, and Atlantis was very much a watery, emotional, sort of personal civilization that was based more on personal power and personal growth. And our current civilization is learning more about collective interaction and growth. And so those concepts of, like, the root races of Lemuria, Atlantis, and now our current civilization, as well as how the ages are changing, those are strong considerations in esoteric astrology. I mean, not about like an individual in their own chart, but about the planet in general, which, of course, esoteric astrology relates to and works with.
Right. So, okay, yeah. Now, obviously, do you teach your method, esoteric astrology? Is that something you teach?
I would say that since my main focus is as a software developer, so I mean I make astrology and now esoteric astrology available to people, and I guess you can maybe say I'm teaching a little bit now. So yes, I can teach with that, and I think that can be a useful thing just to make people more aware that there are ways that astrology can be considered more deeply, and how we can align our path with it.
Right. What was your? Sorry, I should have asked you this at the beginning. Just a bit of curiosity here. What is your sort of main job right now then?
Well, I am a author and computer programmer, and because we know from our previous interview, there was about my book Evolution of the Spirit, and
Yeah.
and now there's like a newer quote unquote publication, which is the newest version of Astrologue, and there's a few other things that I'm working on, but they're not published yet, but hopefully will be soon.
Right. Okay. So there's lots in the pipeline then. So your main sort of job right now is really, doing the astrology charts in a sense.
Yeah, or at least that's been a main project at this time, or at least my main, you could say, area of activity or area of service is to make the new version of Astrologue, and there's an update to it that I hope to have out in another month or two.
Okay. And that again will be available on your website.
Yes. The current version is 6.0, and version 6.1 is in the pipeline. But so yes, the current version can be downloaded from my website as well as other websites around the internet.
And that can be run on most systems, and we don't need to be brain surgeons to work this. It's pretty straightforward, is it?
Well, I try to make it straightforward, but certainly Astrologue has a reputation for being configurable. In other words, you can do many things with it, such as use it as a back end to do charts online. So there are some sites that call Astrologue and then take the result and throw the chart up on a web page for you. And the source code is available, so anyone that really wants to get into it and modify it, like there's a number of quality modifications to Astrologue that people have made over the years. And so yes, definitely making something user friendly so that people can access it and understand it and benefit their lives is definitely a challenge that I think all of us deal with to a certain extent, which actually I think can be reflected in esoteric astrology itself, because much of the growth process is like the soul energies trying to manifest themselves through the personality or express themselves through the personality. But sometimes the personality, like a young child trying to, or a baby trying to get used to its body, it's trying to walk, and so it stands up and then flumps over on its back. And we are kind of like that, but on a spiritual sense. We're trying to connect with our intuition and trying to understand or be able to perceive soul and planetary intent and express it through our bodies and in the world. And currently for most of us, it's with mixed success.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. Absolutely. So we can get, if someone wanted to get an esoteric astrology reading from yourself, that is possible.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have like a business set up where people can sign up for readings, since again my main focus is on the software. But you can use software to, in a sense, almost do esoteric astrology readings for yourself. And
okay.
And so like an important part in esoteric astrology and understanding it is what I would call the trinity of energies. And again, it's somewhat similar to a normal astrology reading, but again, the things are interpreted slightly differently. In other words, in esoteric astrology, the sun is the personality or the outer self, like the body, emotions, and mind, and that's what represents what's being worked on through that. And then the rising sign, or the ascendant, plays a more major role in esoteric astrology, because the ascendant is not just aligned with the first house and a mask that you project to the world, but the ascendant really is the soul energies that are expressing through, or at least have the potential to express through the personality if one aligns with them. And then there's even a more subtle energy beyond that, which is like the point opposite the sun, which is like the geocentric position of the Earth represents the spirit or monad itself. Because if you think that if I'm here on Earth looking up at the sun, and say, like, for me, I have a Scorpio sun. However, if you go from a more planetary universal sense and position yourself on the sun at the time I was born, and not just me as a person, but like the sun, the solar system itself, the Earth where I was in Taurus, and so you can really say that Taurus represents like the spiritual energies in my chart.
Right. Okay. Yeah, because I was going to ask you, actually, how do you cast an esoteric astrology chart then?
Well, it starts with similar to a normal chart, except it is important to know that esoteric astrology does use the tropical zodiac, as most Western astrologers do. That's because of that beaming down of energies from like constellations to the solar system, to the planets, and finally to the Earth, and the Earth, how the Earth interacts with the Earth seasons. And so there's that downstepping of energies. And so you have a normal chart. You can include the planet Vulcan in it, which some software allows you to do. But then more importantly, you interpret it esoterically. So you can take that triad of the sun and the ascendant, and those are the most important things to realize and interpret. And then also the moon, which plays a major role in standard astrology. The moon in esoteric astrology represents the full material nature. In other words, so the moon can be what's being redeemed in a lifetime, or the moon can sometimes be what one needs to liberate themselves from, or the moon can be like the past energies that one has been entwined with in their growth, in their journey up to this point.
Right, okay. Yeah. Now, is there books for those maybe just getting into the esoteric astrology? Is there books available? Is there books that you recommend?
Yes, and one such book is called Esoteric Astrology, and it's one of the books by Alice Bailey, aligned with the Theosophical Society. And the Theosophical Society, there's a number of quality authors and books that have really established or laid the groundwork for much of what we would call the New Age. And so esoteric astrology, it's a over 700-page monster, but it really goes into detail and indicates how much astrology can be considered esoterically. And then, so that's definitely the best book for one who really wants to go into it. And then there is, for like an introduction for things like the concepts of soul and spirit and body and the concept of the spiritual path. Again, my book, Evolution of the Spirit, it explains many concepts for, say, someone earlier on a spiritual path that is really wants to understand more of the concepts in play. And there's a little bit of about astrology and the age of Aquarius and so on in that book.
Right. Okay. Interesting. So we'll link that up on our up on the screen now as well. And well, where can obviously you've got your website, but is that the main website you would say to go to learn more about esoteric astrology?
Well, it's a site, at least for the software, and there are some links on there that can, and some of the links are to esoteric astrology sites. And so, yes, that is a one place to go to. But certainly there are, since esoteric astrology is more than just learning and is more about, you could say, actualizing and living the life spiritually. For one who really wants to do it, you can really embark on your own spiritual path. And there are many ways to do that. and there's not really like a religion, but just working to grow and express and serve in your own way. Like, for example, one thing that I have done, there's a organization called Moria Federation that is a online university that has courses about esoteric astrology and related subjects, and it really is about so one can really understand and work more with meditation and studying esoteric concepts, not just esoteric astrology, but also like the rays and the centers, and working with like-minded individuals. And that's just one possibility among many, because ultimately everyone's path is their own. And although we're all on the same path together, we're each making our own steps individually. So we just want to see like what calls to us, which of course is different based on our own unique souls, and it expresses in the world differently in our own unique personalities.
What called you to astrology then? What was the attraction for you, and how accurate has it been for you as well?
Well, I would say it's been accurate for me, and it's also been a big draw for me. In other words, and some of that comes from, you might say, my own astrological makeup or my own ray makeup. In other words, we have our own individual astrology charts, but you can say we also have our own ray charts. And back to the 7 rays, like our own personality and our souls, and as well as our own physical, astral, and mental bodies can each be associated with the rays. Unlike astrology, a ray chart is more subjective because there's not like, you can't just look up in the sky and get objective positions. But, I have a strong association with Ray 3, which is traditionally connected with astrology. And so you might say that Ray 3, which is about creativity and activity and intelligence, it's that web of life, so to speak, that has something that's always connected, always been drawn to. Like, I work with mazes and labyrinths as well. And so that's that network is also very much Ray 3. So you can sort of say that astrology is traditionally associated with the third ray. And so that is some of my own inclinations align with that. So it makes sense that I would be drawn to astrology just because it naturally fits my own unique inclinations.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we've been putting your book on the screen as well. So for those who, have an interest in your book as well, how does your book, just remind us how your book relates to astrology as well? Or is it just part of the material that's in the book as well?
Well, it's part of the material, since the evolution of the spirit is about spiritual growth. However, certainly one part of spiritual growth is understanding our place in the larger universe around us. And so the book has sections about the understanding the etheric planets or non-physical planets, or the nature of the solar system, as well as just understanding how divination and how we can align with divination around us. Because, one thing I've always said is that astrology is not fixed fate. Whether physically or esoterically, astrology is like a weather report, in that it indicates energies in play, and it can describe inclinations or opportunities. But definitely, it doesn't. Nothing is fixed, and we all have the free will to choose otherwise.
That is interesting. Yeah. So there's still free will at play there. It's not a definitive. It's the possibility, like a weather report. That's a cool way of putting it.
Yeah. I think that is a useful analogy. And in other words, you can say that astrology could say that it's going to rain. And with that rain, I can make certain predictions that, you're probably not going to want to have a picnic, and you're probably not going to have a picnic. But again, a wise, an impish person can just go get an umbrella and do it anyway. And so, again, astrology, even mundane astrology, ultimately only describes energies in play, and nothing describes fixed fate.
And those energies your soul chooses before it comes down here, do you think?
Yeah, like the soul is between incarnations has objectives or things that it's learning, and so each physical incarnation is different. So each incarnation, I may have a different sun sign or planets and different bodies, and therefore different rays, and so all those energies allow me to learn new things or interact in different ways. And then at the end of an incarnation, those qualities or lessons that I've learned, because in a sense, regardless of whether you succeed on a lesson or fail at a lesson, or whether you went, yes, I did it, or whether it's like, oh no, I failed, the important thing that happened is that you interacted with that lesson. Success or failure isn't as important on a soul level, because on the soul level, you were exposed to that quality and became and started valuing that quality. And so those qualities are drawn up into the soul itself and kind of adds on to it or gives you those extra qualities so that then you can fill in the gaps, so to speak, in future lives. So it's actually quite interesting to really think what of us is just the personality and what is truly more inherent or more of a soul quality. Like I can say that, oh, yes, I like astrology, the twists and turns of the spiritual path as represented by mazes and labyrinths. But if I go behind my body and my emotional inclination thoughts and get a sense of consciousness behind it all, then that can really show like what parts of me are independent of this incarnation and what is just like a more temporary clothing that I'm wearing at this time.
What has been the most surprising aspect of esoteric astrology for you then?
The most surprising? Well, I think what I liked is that just seeing the world through new eyes and just seeing that many things that you think are one way are that way, but like once you get behind the cover of the book, you see there's a lot more. Like I could say that it's like the cover of a book versus the text of a book, which is more soul-based, versus more the purpose behind the book being written, which is spirit-based. Like to give a short example, in normal astrology, we have the zodiac sign Aries, aggressive Aries, which is ruled by aggressive Mars, and that's a simple understanding. However, on a esoteric level, Aries is actually ruled by Mercury, which seems unusual because Mercury is associated with the mental life and ideas. But really, on a more cause-based level, Mercury is about the ideas that are being initiated in the physical world of the personality. So the initiating active rushing forth energy of Aries is based on the cause of an idea. And so esoterically, Aries is associated with Mercury. And then if you go even beyond that to a higher planetary level, Aries is ruled by Uranus. And Uranus is about that change and revolution. And so you can really say, like, why are new ideas being introduced on the planet, or what's the point behind the ideas? And that's the Uranus is to create evolution. And so you really have the activeness of Aries on an outer level, but there's the idea on a more esoteric level, and then finally you get to the spiritual purpose, which is about the evolution and change as represented by Aries.
Okay, excellent. Well, it's been thoroughly fascinating to get you back on to look at this aspect of your work, which we never went into this much detail before. And it's it's like a rabbit hole, isn't it? The further you go, the more there is.
It is, and definitely I'm still learning myself, and I definitely wouldn't have it any other way. Because we can. Yeah, I mean, we're all on a path and growing, but there's still a lot that we can do to even help the planet, even as we're still growing at the same time. So we can both grow ourselves and help others in the planet around us.
Absolutely. Well, Walter Pullen, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today.
You are welcome, and thank you in return for having me on.
Well, we've come to an end on tonight's show. Don't forget that you can watch and listen to all our past interviews on the More Show's official YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new daily shows. You may also find out more on all past and upcoming guests on the show via themoreshow.co.uk, and do like us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates. So until next time, be safe.